It's time for our weekly conversation with our guy, Adam Terry. And, lots to get into, is there not, Adam, off a game like that on Friday night? Well, where do you go first? Because, the 4th and 9 stands out at the end, certainly as a play that could have won the game. And then it feels like the line of scrimmage really may be the story of the game. Which kind of tickles your fancy of what you think back on first of that game?
Well, I think when you look back on it, it is, the point of attack, right? How did you do on the point of attack against them in all facets, run game, pass pro, things like that. And then also defensively, how did you do at the point of attack? So, as you walk away from it, I think the biggest thing is 4 sacks with some pressures and things along those lines. Like, those were the most challenging things as a former offensive lineman to look at, because they had cleaned that up going into the second game. So Georgia Tech was a much cleaner game, but also playing against Georgia Tech, they had only 1 sack going into this game. And, David Bailey, the defensive end, came onto the scene with a lot of pressure and, the ability to go after the quarterback. So that was kind of the more frustrating aspect of it. But, overall, I think that's one thing that needs to be cleaned up. And, there are so many other things that are nuanced throughout the game and kind of, you're like, oh, okay, that wasn't that bad. But, over the course of a game, missed opportunities lead into a loss. And, do I still think that this Syracuse team is better than Stanford? Sure. But Io Manor, like, he's the real deal, right? Like, he's a guy that pregame you saw a bunch of scouts down there, and you also saw the Senior Bowl down there. You saw a lot of guys that were in to capture what this kid has as far as talent. And, that end of the game, he made a hell of a play, right? Like, it is what it is. You can slice it and dice it, but that's a one-on-one deal right there. It throws the back shoulder, and he made a play.
I want to get back to the O-line here in a little bit, but on that last play, Fran has kind of said he spent almost all of his press conference today saying, yeah, this was on Coach Fran. At the time, you're like, okay, do you double him up? Like, how much of that is hindsight? Clarence Lewis had been playing well up to that point. How much of that is the dude's an NFL player, and sometimes you get beat by NFL dudes?
Yeah, that guy's going to be playing on Sunday, right? And, as far as what it is, big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games. And, it was an opportunity for them to go forward and Stanford to kind of notch one on the belt, and they did. And I think that's just chalking one up to a high-level guy, very good throw from Ashton Daniels. And, it was a heck of a play when they needed it. And throughout this course of the year so far, Syracuse has had a couple of those moments where they're looking for a big play and they find one of their big-time guys, and that just wasn't there as much as they've been accustomed to.
Yeah, go back to the Georgia Tech game. It was 3rd and 10 for Syracuse, and they got it to Gadsden, and you get a first down and essentially seal the game up. So it was a lot the line play, though, right, Adam? When you look at, that's one play that could have changed the game, but in order to get in that position, when you look at this line, and, it was so much talk of the offseason, I've thought, certainly the Georgia Tech game, I thought they played pretty well this season. Was it a step back? Is it concerning? Or where do you see them on their progress through this season in protecting McCord and getting a run game going?
This is a bump on the road, right? I think in the past game, you've just got to look at it and say, hey, how can I help somebody if they need help, whether that's chip help or whether that's taking a tight end and putting him there so it's a little bit more width and chipping out at that. Like, that in and of itself is, Coach Nixon's going to get that dialed in, and it's going to be, you're going to need to do it further on later in the season because you're going to meet some big-time pass rushers. But for this, it was, were we prepared for it? Probably. But they just got the better of us that day, and that's as far as pass protection. But as far as the run game, you're going against a top 10 run defense, and were they world beaters? Not there was nobody on that team as far as what, that I saw that this guy was a Dwight Freeney or, a this or a that. But they played well. They played team football, and they knew where they had to line up. They knew their gap, and nothing got distorted very much. So as far as that, you tip your cap to Stanford because they came in highly touted as far as the run stuffers. And then, they left that too. I think they did a good job. And, it's back to the drawing board. I think for Syracuse, this is one where you chalk it up as a loss. It's a hard loss, but then you have to move on. There is ample opportunity throughout the rest of the season to prove your point. And you just can't allow this one loss turn into 2 or 3. And, the luxury that Syracuse has is that they're going to go and they're going to play Holy Cross this weekend. So you should be able to get out there, get an early lead, work on some stuff, right? Like, it's one thing to go into practice on work on something. It's another thing to actually go against a different colored jersey and guys that are trying to make plays against you.
And, we'll see. It feels to me, Adam, right? Like, all right, we know what McCord is, right? And we know he's a good player. Like, why not get the run game going this week, right, against Holy Cross and get this part of the game tuned up here?
Yeah, this game is about confidence. It's to instill confidence back in everybody. Everybody outside the walls, it's to instill confidence so that, they can keep coming. And it was beautiful that place was packed. It's going to be even better this coming weekend, hopefully, right? Like, you bought tickets, hopefully you show up for it, right? Like,
right.
That's kind of the anticipation of it. But I think everybody inside those walls, not inside those walls, but having been inside those walls and numerous other ones where you come away with a tough loss, it's rally the troops, get everybody back on the same page, get into practice, work hard. And, the biggest thing right now, and we've said it year after year, hey, injuries. And that's a little bit of what has derailed Syracuse right now is key players in different positions, whether they're 100% or whether they're a little bit banged up. That detracts from what you're trying to do, especially in the secondary.
Man, we were certainly a bit surprised by the random list of guys that were out after the bye week for this last week. No Tank Wilson during the game. Zede Haynes has a family issue he's dealing with. Obviously, Marlo Wax continues to be out. On the defense, Adam, and Adam Terry's with us. So, Georgia Tech game, like we saw what they did with Fadil Diggs, right? They had him play this kind of unusual sort of middle linebacker-y, whatever the heck they were doing, role. So that's a D lineman that was replacing what Marlo Wax did. Now, this last game, you bring down one of your safeties and Justin Barron to do it. It feels like that they're trying to throw anything out there, right, to replace Marlo. How tough is this to replace, the guy on your defense, as we can see them really literally doing anything out there right now?
Yeah, it takes a creative mind, and Elijah Robinson's doing a good job with that. I think they had a solid game plan against Georgia Tech. You get a little bit longer duration to make sure that you can dial in what you're accustomed to. But it is one where, like, the health of the club and the health of everybody is going to dictate what you can and can't do on the field. And for this one, for Syracuse right now, you're not grasping at straws by any stretch of the imagination, but it is putting guys in different positions that they may not be accustomed to, and that little bit of a pause can make some big plays for that offense that they're going against.
You think that's too? I mean, obviously Tank Wilson wasn't in there, so that's a significant presence in the middle of your line. But now, Barron's a big dude, but if he's playing linebacker, you're basically playing, 6 defensive backs. How much harder does it make it to stop the run, as we saw what Stanford did on the ground last week?
I mean, smaller bodies against big bodies, the big bodies usually win. So, you have to now how you game plan it up, and usually the smaller body guys, you're either bringing blitzes or you're bringing something that they can use their speed and athleticism to get by those bigger guys. Otherwise, we've seen it in the past where you're looking at guys that are big and strong and powerful, leaning on smaller guys. So I think the luxury that we have in this iteration of Syracuse football is you've got much bigger guys on the defensive line. And, Justin Barron's not a small dude. He is a little bit more athletic and a little bit lighter, but, he can hold up in the middle, and it's just a matter of now what I see is everybody just getting comfortable and acclimated to guys that are surrounding them, right? Like, that's a tough thing. Like, you go through training camp, and you have one voice of Marlo Wax throughout the course of that time. Now you're left with something else. Okay, well, what is that something else? And does it, is it a little bit less confident? Is it a little bit less that? When you lose a leader like that, everything kind of slows down a little bit. I've been in situations where we were in Baltimore and we lost Ray Lewis for the season. Yeah, we were still a great defense, but you lost a little bit of that energy and enthusiasm, and there's only so much from the sideline that you can get done.
Adam Terry's with us. We're looking back at Friday night. Stanford Holy Cross is coming up this Saturday noon in the Dome, a game that's already sold out here for Family Weekend. Upcoming, Arondé Gadsden, Adam, he had a quiet game. He was getting double-teamed most of the game. I think you mentioned he had to help out the chip blocking a lot. He had that kind of weird early penalty on special teams. What'd you make of Gadsden's game, and how tough is that role right now that, other teams know, all right, we got to stop this guy, and, we think of him as a pass catcher, right? But he's still got to do that tight end stuff and help out the line.
Well, I think with Gadsden's penalty on special teams, I thought it was a heads up. Like, as you're looking at it, as a bang play, but it was pretty heads up. It doesn't look as though he touches his knee when they go back through the replay. So, yeah, I think that's out of character, but it was also one where he's just making sure that the guy's down, and if he didn't hear the whistle, it is what it is. I don't think anybody took offense to that penalty that he had. But you're a high-profile guy, and people are starting to double-team you and bracket you. And you look at what Bobby April did with the defense for Stanford. They did a pretty good job of just making sure that they had the playmakers reined in. Trevor Pena, he has another game. And then Yamari Hatcher, we get that big play called back. That's another one. So, you chalk it up as a loss. You don't feel good about it, but it's also one where you just can't, that's our job, is to try to pick it apart. But there's still that player, that guy that played inside that I'm saying, hey, we got to move on and, look and see what we can get done against Holy Cross and still confidence in what we have, and just make sure that everybody's dialed in for a good one in front of a home crowd.
I'll ask you this here, Adam. Literally, the replay's on in front of my face right now. They air this stuff all week long on ACC Network, and just in the replay, Jackson Meek scored the touchdown to take the lead. Fran kind of addressed this talking about Kyle earlier today about, the game wasn't going well, but still, like, they let a drive and went down and took the lead. Dino Babers era, like, the team winning at halftime won almost every game, right? When Dino was the head coach. What does it say about you, about this group and Kyle, that they did come back and make a game out of it?
Yeah, I think it's a resilient bunch of guys, right? And it's still, offensively, they're still getting to know each other, and somebody on Twitter will probably post that. I think if you haven't strapped up the pads and you don't understand who the guy is next to you, it takes some time. And some of these guys are just here and they're new. It is what it is. And we were all feeling great after 2-0, and this one stings a little bit. You had your opportunities and you just got to seize them. The biggest thing that stands out to me is, you had 4 sacks and 2 INTs, and, that right there, the INTs, are they on the quarterback? Maybe. Could be on the offensive line. Like, I don't have an end zone cut to really differentiate what that looks like. But, there needs to be some work, and that needs to be put in progress.
Now you got Holy Cross, as you said, Adam, and the result should be whatever it is this week. They're 1-3 and just lost to Yale. You know the deal. These FCS games, so they have been decent in recent years. What do you want to get out of this game here, Adam? Like, is it confidence, sharpness? What is the goal, would you say, for Syracuse this week?
You want to have a decisive win. You've been back and forth in a lot of games. sometimes it is, going against a lesser opponent where you can get that feel of, hey, this is what it feels like to march down the field. This is what it is to hold a lead. This is what it is to gain some confidence. So I think it should be a pretty decisive win, right? Like, by 24 plus points, and you feel good about it, and then you go on your road gauntlet. Like, UNLV is going to be ranked, and unless they take a loss, but you've got quality opponents coming in. So this one to me is build the confidence, work on some of the things, whether that is in the secondary or on the offensive line, or, hey, I need to see what this looks like with this player, this personnel package. That's what a game like this is for. And usually this is week 1. It's not usually week 4.
Yeah, it's always kind of weird. At least gets shifted later in the season.
Actually,
You're right.
Week 5, actually.
That's true. Yeah, end of September. Then after this week, right? You got like 6 straight coin flip games, give or take. So it certainly is the decisive point of your season after we turn the corner from this. All right, Adam. Good stuff as always. Thanks, man. Enjoy the week. We'll talk again next Monday.